So here's a power tip. Inject your personality and or quirkiness into your copy and help people bond with you. One of my favorite writers is Laura Petrolino from Spin Sucks, and she's a master at integrating who she is as a person into her content. And so here she is being a total badass on deadlifting. And so she uses her avocation of powerlifting and bodybuilding as a metaphor in this article. Technique matters for communication strategy success. Excuse me. So think about, what do you do in your personal life that's kind of unusual, maybe a little quirky, maybe a little idiosyncratic, but that can help people connect with you as a human being and not just as an entity. And also, again, help separate you from the sea of sameness. And if you read Laura's work, you can see what I mean about injecting personality, how it just makes it so much more intriguing. So here I am living the surfer's dream of surfing in Maine in the wintertime. And so that's a passion of mine. So I use surfing analogies when I do work on managing change and resilience. And I just had an experience recently about feedback that totally changed my game in terms of surfing ability, that I'm going to use in a blog post about the importance of getting feedback and coaching. And actually I did a little short video because I had to pull that story out because of time constraints. But it's on the resource page if you want to see the application and data.
Okay, so let's wind up with a few guiding principles. Number one, when you inject more of your personality into your copy, you separate yourself from others who write about your topic because no one has your story or unique combination of interests and quirkiness. So I already talked about that in the live presentation. You make yourself far more interesting. And then last but not least, you really help people bond to you person to person, so they feel like they know you and want to hear more about you. This is actually an interesting concept I learned from a man named Dan Kennedy, who's just a genius in marketing. And one of the things that he's found over 30 or more years now in marketing is the importance of sharing who you are as a person, because his experience in consulting with other thought leaders, information marketing experts, etc., is that having great content alone is not enough to keep people coming back year after year and wanting to learn more from you. They need to bond with you. And he likens it to authors who have a series of novels all based on a single character, and how they have much more rabid fans than authors who each novel has a different cast of characters. Because people, and think about yourself, if you read novels, you've had that experience. You bond to this character from book to book, from novel to novel. So you can do the same sort of thing by not just being an air quote thought leader and expert, but a human being who lives an interesting life and shares some of that. Now, the last point related to this may sound kind of cynical, but it's something that, think about how true it might be. One of the other things that Dan Kennedy talks about is a lot of people live boring lives, and your sharing of your adventures and idiosyncrasies might be one of the more, if not one of the most interesting things that they experience week to week, month from month, etc. So that's another thing to think about in terms of why it's useful to share more of who you are as a person. So to wrap up, here's how to connect up with what makes you fascinating. Make a list of your hobbies, even the ones that may seem kind of quirky or dorky even, your interests, where you've traveled in your life, anything that you've done that you've shared with your friends and said, wow, that was pretty wild that I did this or traveled here or had this kind of experience. And then ask, okay, what experiences of mine in these different areas that you jotted down or just in general might people find unique and interesting? And even better still, ask a good friend like what what are some of the things that I've shared? What about me is unique and interesting? And you can say, I'm not asking that to stroke my ego. I want to be a more interesting writer and want to figure out what people find interesting about me, so I could emphasize that in my writing. And you want to do that because sometimes we underestimate how interesting we are. Now I know some people you might think overestimate how interesting they are, but that would not be you. And then last but not least, incorporate more of who you are as a person into your writing. So if you have a quirky sense of humor, use more of that. If you see things in just a kind of unique sort of way, typically than people around you, ask, how can I incorporate more of that somewhat offbeat perspective that I have? And I know for myself, when I first started writing, and my writing has always or has mostly been in the in the corporate world. When I first started, I thought I had to sound sort of like an academic author and be like ultra buttoned up and professional. Even though I still try to be professional, I write more like I'm talking to another person. And I, depending on what the topic is and what the audience is, I add a little more of who I am and my interests
hope
into
that
my
was
writing,
useful.
so people get more of
And
a
for
sense
more
of this
tips
is a human being
on
writing
how
and
to
not
be a great
just,
storyteller, please go to
some content producer.
storiesthatchange.com.